Chapter 1. A Terrible Loss. There could be no doubt of the fact. Princess Ozma, the lovely girl ruler of the fairyland of Oz, was lost. She had completely disappeared. Not one of her subjects, not even her closest friends, knew what had become of her. It was Dorothy who first discovered it. Dorothy was a little Kansas girl who had come to the land of Oz to live and had been given a delightful suite of rooms in Ozma's royal palace just because Ozma loved Dorothy and wanted her to live as near her as possible so the two girls might be much together. Dorothy was not the only girl from the outside world who had been welcomed to Oz and lived in the royal palace. There was another named Betsy Bobbin, whose adventures had led her to seek refuge with Ozma, and still another named Trot, who had been invited, together with her faithful companion Cap'n Bill, to make her home in this wonderful fairyland. The three girls all had rooms in the palace and were great chums, but Dorothy was the dearest friend of their gracious ruler, and only she, at any hour, dared to seek Ozma in her royal apartments. For Dorothy had lived in Oz much longer than the other girls, and had been made a princess of the realm. Betsy was a year older than Dorothy, and Trot was a year younger. Yet the three were near enough up in age to become great playmates and to have nice times together. It was while the three were talking together one morning in Dorothy's room that Betsy proposed they make a journey into the Munchkin country, which was one of the 4 great countries of the land of Oz, ruled by Ozma. "I've never been there yet," said Betsy Bobbin, "but the Scarecrow once told me it is the prettiest country in all Oz." "I'd like to go, too," added Trot. "All right," said Dorothy. "I'll go and ask Ozma. Perhaps she will let us take the Sawhorse and the Red Wagon, which would be much nicer for us than having to walk all the way. This land of Oz is a pretty big place when you get to all the edges of it." So she jumped up and went along the halls of the splendid palace until she came to the royal suite, which filled all the front of the second floor. In a little waiting room sat Ozma's maid, Jellia Jamb, who was busily sewing. "Is Ozma up yet?" inquired Dorothy. "I don't know, my dear," replied Jellia. "I haven't heard a word from her this morning. She hasn't even called for her bath or her breakfast, and it is far past her usual time for them." "That's strange," exclaimed the little girl. "Yes," agreed the maid, "but of course no harm could have happened to her. No one can die or be killed in the land of Oz, and Ozma is herself a powerful fairy, and she has no enemies so far as we know. Therefore, I am not at all worried about her, though I must admit her silence is unusual." "Perhaps," said Dorothy thoughtfully, "she has overslept, or she may be reading or working out some new sort of magic to do good to her people." "Any of these things may be true," replied Jellia Jamb, "so I haven't dared disturb our royal mistress. You, however, are a privileged character, Princess, and I am sure that Ozma wouldn't mind at all if you went in to see her." "Of course not," said Dorothy, and opening the door of the outer chamber, she went in. All was still here. She walked into another room, which was Ozma's boudoir, and then, pushing back a heavy drapery richly broidered with threads of pure gold, the girl entered the sleeping room of the fairy ruler of Oz. The bed of ivory and gold was vacant. The room was vacant. Not a trace of Ozma was to be found. Very much surprised, yet still with no fear that anything had happened to her friend, Dorothy returned through the boudoir to the other rooms of the suite. She went into the music room, the library, the laboratory, the bath, the wardrobe, and even into the great throne room which adjoined the royal suite, but in none of these places could she find Ozma. So she returned to the anteroom where she had left the maid, Jellia Jamb, and said, "She isn't in her rooms now, so she must have gone out." "I don't understand how she could do that without my seeing her," replied Jellia, "unless she made herself invisible." "She isn't there, anyhow," declared Dorothy. "Then let us go find her," suggested the maid, who appeared to be a little uneasy. So they went into the corridors, and there Dorothy almost stumbled over a queer girl who was dancing lightly along the passage. "Stop a minute, Scraps," she called. "Have you seen Ozma this morning?" "Not I," replied the queer girl, dancing nearer. "I lost both my eyes in a tussle with a woozy last night, for the creature scraped them both off my face with his square paws. So I put the eyes in my pocket, and this morning Button-Bright led me to Aunt Em, who sewed 'em on again. So I've seen nothing at all today, except during the last 5 minutes, so of course I haven't seen Ozma." "Very well, Scrap," said Dorothy, looking curiously at the eyes, which were merely 2 round black buttons sewed upon the girl's face. There were other things about Scraps that would have seemed curious to one seeing her for the first time. She was commonly called the Patchwork Girl, because her body and limbs were made from a gay-colored patchwork quilt, which had been cut into shape and stuffed with cotton. Her head was a round ball stuffed in the same manner and fastened to her shoulders. For hair, she had a mass of brown yarn, and to make a nose for her, a part of the cloth had been pulled out into the shape of a knob and tied with a string to hold it in place. Her mouth had been carefully made by cutting a slit in the proper place and lining it with red silk, adding 2 rows of pearls for teeth and a bit of red flannel for a tongue. In spite of this queer make-up, the Patchwork Girl was magically alive, and it proved herself not the least jolly and agreeable of the many quaint characters who inhabit the astonishing fairyland of Oz. Indeed, Scraps was a general favorite, although she was rather flighty and erratic, and did and said many things that surprised her friends. She was seldom still, but loved to dance, to turn handsprings and somersaults, to climb trees, and to indulge in many other active sports. "I'm going to search for Ozma," remarked Dorothy, "for she isn't in her rooms, and I want to ask her a question." "I'll go with you," said Scraps, "for my eyes are brighter than yours, and they can see farther." "I'm not sure of that," replied Dorothy, "but come along if you like." Together they searched all through the great palace, and even to the farthest limits of the palace grounds, which were quite extensive, but nowhere could they find a trace of Ozma. When Dorothy returned to where Betsy and Trot awaited her, the little girl's face was rather solemn and troubled, for never before had Ozma gone away without telling her friends where she was going, or without an escort that befitted her royal state. She was gone, however, and none had seen her go. Dorothy had met and questioned the Scarecrow, Tick-Tock, the Shaggy Man, Button-Bright, Cap'n Bill, and even the wise and powerful Wizard of Oz, but not one of them had seen Ozma since she parted with her friends the evening before and had gone to her own rooms. "She didn't say anything last night about going anywhere," observed little Trot. "No, and that's the strange part of it," replied Dorothy. "Usually Ozma lets us know of everything she does." "Why not look in the magic picture?" suggested Betsy Bobbin. "That will tell us where she is in just 1 second." "Of course!" cried Dorothy. "Why didn't I think of that before?" And at once the 3 girls hurried away to Ozma's boudoir, where the magic picture always hung. This wonderful magic picture was one of Royal Ozma's greatest treasures. There was a large gold frame in the center of which was a bluish-gray canvas, on which various scenes constantly appeared and disappeared. If one who stood before it wished to see what any person anywhere in the world was doing, it was only necessary to make the wish, and the scene in the magic picture would shift to the scene where that person was, and show exactly what he or she was then engaged in doing. So the girls knew it would be easy for them to wish to see Ozma, and from the picture they could quickly learn where she was. Dorothy advanced to the place where the picture was usually protected by thick satin curtains and pulled the draperies aside. Then she stared in amazement, while her two friends
Chapter 3. We Belong Together. I had not yet made love to Jenny. In the 3 weeks we had been together, we had held hands. Sometimes we had kissed, but that was all. Usually I moved much faster. Ask the other girls that I'd been out with. But Jenny was special. I felt different about her, and I didn't know what to say to her. "You're going to fail your exams, Oliver." We were studying in my room one Sunday afternoon. "Oliver, you'll fail your exams if you don't do some work." "I am working." "No, you aren't. You're looking at my legs." "Only once every chapter." "That book has very short chapters." "Listen, you aren't as good-looking as all that." "I know, but you think I am, don't you?" "Damn it, Jenny. How can I study when all the time I want to make love to you?" She closed her book softly and put it down. She put her arms around me. "Oliver, will you please make love to me?" It all happened at once. It was all so unhurried, soft and gentle. And I was gentle too. Was this the real Oliver Barrett IV? "Hey, Oliver, did I ever tell you that I love you?" said Jenny finally. "No, Jen." I kissed her neck. "I love you very much, Oliver." I love Ray Stratton, too. He's not very clever or a wonderful footballer, but he was a good friend to me. Where did he go to study when I was in our room with Jenny? Where did he sleep on those Saturdays when Jenny and I spent the night together? In the old days, I always told him all about my girlfriends, but I never told him about Jenny and me. "My God, Barrett, are you two sleeping together or not?" asked Ray. "Raymond, please don't ask." "You spend every minute of your free time with her. It isn't natural." "Ray, when two adults are in love—" "Love? At your age? Oh, my God, I worry about you. I really do." "Don't worry, Raymond, old friend. We'll have that flat in New York one day. Different girls every night. Don't you tell me not to worry, Barrett. That girl's got you, and I don't like it." That evening, I went to hear Jenny play the piano with the music group. "You were wonderful," I said afterwards. "That shows what you know about music, Preppy." We walked along the river together. I played okay, not wonderful, not Olympic Games, just okay. Okay? Okay, but you should always continue your music. "Of course I will. I'm going to study with Nadia Boulanger, aren't I?" "Who?" "Nadia Boulanger. She's a famous music teacher in Paris. I'm very lucky. I won a scholarship, too." "Jennifer, you're going to Paris?" "I've never seen Europe. I'm really excited about it." I took her by the arms and pulled her towards me. "Hey, how long have you known this?" Jenny looked down at her feet. "Oliver, don't be stupid. We can't do anything about it. After we finish university, you'll go your way and I'll go mine. You'll go to law school." "Wait a minute. What are you talking about?" She looked into my eyes. "Ollie, you're a rich preppy. Your old man owns a bank. My father's a baker in Cranston, Rhode Island. And I'm nobody." "What does that matter? We're together now. We're happy." "Ollie, don't be stupid," she repeated. "Harvard is full of all kinds of different people. You study together, you have fun together. But afterwards, you have to go back to where you belong." "We belong together." "Don't leave me, Jenny. Please." "What about my scholarship? What about Paris? What about our marriage?" "Who said anything about marriage?" said Jenny in surprise. "Me. I'm saying it now." "Why?" I looked straight into her eyes. "Because," I said. "Oh," said Jenny. "That's a very good reason." She took my arm, and we walked along the river. There was nothing more to say, really. The next Sunday, we drove to visit my parents in Ipswich, Massachusetts. Jenny said it was the right thing to do, and of course there was also the fact that Oliver III paid for my studies at Harvard. "Oh, my God," Jenny said when we drove up to the house. "I didn't expect this. It's like a damn palace." "Please, Jen, everything will be fine." "For a nice all-American girl of good family, perhaps. Not for Jennifer Cavallari, baker's daughter from Cranston, Rhode Island." Florence opened the door. She has worked for the Barrett family for many years. She told us that my parents were waiting in the library. We followed her past a long line of pictures of famous Barretts and a glass case full of silver and gold cups. "They look just like real silver and gold," said Jenny. "They don't give cups like those at the Cranston Sports Club." "They are real silver and gold," I answered. "Oh, my God! Are they yours?" "No, my father's." "Do you have silver and gold cups too, Oliver?" "Yes." "In a glass case, like these?" "No, up in my room, under the bed." She gave me one of her good Jenny looks. "We'll go and look at them later, shall we?" Before I could answer, we heard a voice.
"Ah, hello there."
It was old Stonyface. "Oh, hello, sir. This is Jennifer."
"Hello there."
He shook her hand before I could say her full name. There was a smile on his usually rock-like face.
"Do come in and meet Mrs. Barrett, my wife, Allison. This is Jennifer."
"Calavari," I said. For the first and only time, I got her damn name wrong. "Cavallari," said Jenny politely. Mother and Jenny shook hands. All through dinner, Mother kept the polite small talk going. "So, your people are from Cranston, Jennifer?" said my mother. Mostly. My mother came from Fall River."
"Oh, the Barretts have factories at Fall River,"
said Oliver III. "Where they cheated their workers for centuries," said Oliver IV.
"In the 19th century,"
said Oliver III. What about the plans to put automatic machines in the factories? Said Oliver the Fourth. What about coffee? My mother said quickly. We moved back into the library. We sat there with nothing to say to each other. So I started a new non-conversation. Tell me, Jennifer, I said, what do you think about the Peace Corps? She looked at me in surprise. Oh, have you told them, O.B.? asked my mother.
It isn't the time for that, my dear,
said Oliver Barrett III, with an ask me look on his face. What's this, Father? I asked, just to please him.
Oh, nothing important, son.
I don't know how you can say that, said my mother. She turned to me. Your father is going to be head of the Peace Corps. Oh, I said. Oh, said Jenny, in a different, happier kind of voice. Well done, Mr. Barrett. She gave me a hard look. Yes. Well done, sir, I said at last. Chapter 4. Two different kinds of father. Jenny, he isn't going to be president of the USA, after all. We were driving back to Harvard. You still weren't very nice to him about it, Oliver. I said, well done. Huh. Oliver, why are you so unkind to your father? You hurt him all the time. It's impossible to hurt Oliver Barrett III. No, it isn't. If you marry Jennifer Cavallari... Oliver, I know you love me, but in a strange way you want me because I'm not a suitable woman for a Barrett to marry. You are rebelling against your father. My father said the same thing a few days later when we had lunch together at the Harvard Club in Boston.
Son, you're in too much of a hurry. The young lady herself is fine. The problem is you. You are rebelling, and you know it.
Father, what worries you most about her? That she's Italian, or that she's poor?
What do you like most about her?
I'm leaving.
Stay and talk like a man.
I stayed. Old Stonyface liked that. He's won again, I thought angrily.
Wait a while, son,
Oliver Barrett III continued.
That's all I ask. Finish law school.
Why do I have to wait? I was rebelling now.
Oliver, you are still under 21. In the eyes of the law, you are not yet an adult.
Stop talking like a lawyer, damn it!
If you marry her now, you will get nothing from me.
Father, you've got nothing that I want. I walked out of his club and out of his life. After that, I was not looking forward to meeting Jenny's father. She was his only child, and her mother was dead. She meant a lot to him. I could see a lot of problems there. And I was penniless. How is Mr. Cavallari going to feel, I thought, when he hears that young Barrett can't support his daughter? Worse, she will have to work as a teacher to support him while he is at law school. As we drove down to Cranston on that Sunday in May, I worried a lot about Mr. Cavallari's feelings. Tell me again, Jen. Okay. I telephoned him and he said okay. But what does he mean by okay? Are you trying to tell me that Harvard Law School has accepted a man who doesn't know the meaning of okay? It isn't a word that lawyers use much, Jen. Just tell me again, please. He knows you're poor and he doesn't mind. Stop worrying, Oliver. Jenny lived on Hamilton Street. It was a long line of wooden houses with children playing in front of them and whole families sitting on their front steps. I felt like a stranger in a strange land as I parked the MG outside 189A Hamilton Street. Mr. Cavallari's handshake was warm and strong. "How do you do, sir?" I said.
"I'm Phil,"
he said. "Phil, sir." It was a frightening moment. Then Mr. Cavallari turned to his daughter. Suddenly they were in each other's arms, laughing and crying and kissing. I felt like a stranger. For some time, I did not have to speak much. Don't speak with your mouth full, my family had told me when I was a child. Phil and his daughter kept my mouth full all afternoon. I don't know how many Italian cakes I ate. Both Cavallaris were very pleased.
"He's okay,"
said Phil at last. "I told you he was okay," said his daughter.
"Well, I had to see for myself. Now I've seen him. Oliver?"
"Yes, sir?"
"Call me Phil. You're okay."
Later, Phil tried to have a serious talk with me. He thought he could bring Oliver Barrett III and Oliver Barrett IV together again.
"Let me speak to him on the telephone," he said. "A father's love is a very special thing."
"There isn't much of it in my family," I said.
"Your father will soon realize," he began, "when it's time to go to the church."
"Phil," said Jenny gently, "we don't want to be married in church." He looked surprised, then unhappy. But he spoke bravely.
"It's your wedding, children. You choose. It's okay by me."
My next meeting was with the head of Harvard Law School. "I'll need a scholarship for next year, sir," I said politely.
"A scholarship? I don't understand. Your father—"
"My father has nothing to do with it, sir. We've had a disagreement, and he isn't supporting me anymore." The head took off his glasses, then put them on again. I continued. "That's why I've come here to see you, sir. I'm getting married next month. We're both going to work during the summer. Then Jenny will support us by teaching. But her teaching won't pay enough to send me to law school. Sir, I need a scholarship. I have no money in the bank."
"Mr. Barrett, our scholarships are for poor people, and it's too late to ask for one. I do not wish to enter into a family disagreement, but I think you should go and talk to your father again."
"No," I said angrily. "I am not, repeat, not going back to my father to ask for money." When Jenny graduated from university that summer, all her relations came from Cranston to watch. We didn't tell them about our marriage plans because we wanted a quiet wedding and didn't want to hurt their feelings. I graduated from Harvard the next day. Was Oliver III there in the university hall? I don't know. I didn't look for old Stonyface in the crowd. I gave my parents' tickets to Jenny and Phil. But as an old Harvard man, My father could sit with the class of 26. But why should he want to? I mean, weren't the banks open that day? The wedding was on the next Sunday. It was very quiet and very beautiful. Phil was there, of course, and my friend Ray Stratton. Jenny and I spoke about our love for each other and promised to stay together until death. Ray gave me the ring, and soon Oliver Barrett IV and Jennifer Cavalieri were man and wife. We had a small party afterwards, just the four of us. Then Ray and Phil went home, and Jenny and I were alone together. Jenny, we're really married. Yes. Now I can be as terrible to you as I like. Chapter 5. The first 3 years. For 3 years, we had to make every dollar do the work of 2. All through the summer holidays, we worked at the boat club in Dennisport. It was hard work, but we were never too tired to be kind to each other. I say kind because there are no words to describe our love and happiness together. After the summer, we found a cheap flat near the university. It was on the top floor of an old house and was actually very expensive. But what could we do? There weren't many flats around. "Hey, Preppy," said Jenny when we arrived there. "Are you my husband, or aren't you?" "Of course I'm your husband." "Show me, then." My God, I thought. In the street? "Carry me into our first home." I carried her up the 5 steps to the front door. "Why did you stop?" she asked. "This isn't our home. Upstairs, Preppy." There were 24 stairs up to our flat, and I had to stop halfway. "Why are you so heavy?" I asked her. "Perhaps I'm expecting a baby." "My God, are you?" "Ha! I frightened you then, didn't I?" "Well, yes, just for a second or two." I carried her the rest of the way. There were very few moments in those days when we were not worrying about money. Very few, and very wonderful. And that moment was one of them. A food shop let us eat now, pay later, thanks to the Barrett name. But our famous name did not help us in Jenny's work. The head of the school thought we were rich. "Of course, we can't pay our teachers very much," said Miss Whitman. "But that won't worry you, Mrs. Barrett." Jenny tried to explain that Barretts had to eat, just like other people. Miss Whitman just laughed politely. "Don't worry," Jenny said to me. "We'll manage. Just learn to like spaghetti." I did. I learned to like spaghetti, and Jenny learned lots of different ways of cooking it. With Jenny's pay from school, and our money from our summer work and my holiday jobs, we managed. Our lives had changed a lot, of course. There was no more music for Jenny. She had to teach all day, and came home very tired. Then she had to cook dinner. Restaurants were too expensive for us. There were a lot of films that we didn't see, and places and people that we didn't visit. But we were doing okay. One day, a beautiful invitation arrived. It was for my father's 60th birthday party. "Well," said Jenny, I was in the middle of a thick law book and did not hear her at first.
Oliver, he's reaching out to you.
No, he isn't. My mother wrote it. Now be quiet, I'm studying. I've got exams in 3 weeks.
Ollie, think. 60 years old, damn it. How do you know that he'll still be alive when you decide to forget your disagreement?
I don't know, and I don't care. Now let me get on with my work.
One day, said Jenny, when you're having problems with Oliver V,
Our son won't be called Oliver. You can be sure of that, I said angrily.
You can call him Bozo if you like, but that child will feel bad about you because you were a big Harvard sportsman. And by the time he goes to university, you'll probably be a big, important lawyer, she continued. Oliver, your father loves you in the same way as you will love Bozo. But you Barretts are so full of pride. You'll go through life thinking that you hate each other. Now, what about that invitation?
Write them a nice letter of refusal.
Oliver, I can't hurt your father like that. What's their telephone number?
I told her, and was at once deep in my law book again. I tried not to listen to her talking on the telephone, but she was in the same room after all. Suddenly I thought, how long does it take to say no?
Ollie!
Jenny had her hand over the telephone mouthpiece.
Ollie, do we have to say no?
Yes, we do. And hurry up, damn it!
I'm terribly sorry,
she said into the telephone. She covered the mouthpiece again and turned to me.
He's very unhappy, Oliver. Can you just sit there and let your father bleed?
Stones don't bleed, Jen. This isn't one of your warm, loving Italian fathers.
Oliver, can't you just speak to him?
Speak to him?
Are you crazy?
She held the telephone towards me. She was trying not to cry. I will never speak to him. Ever, I said. Now she was crying, very quietly. Then she asked me once more.
From me, Oliver? I've never asked you for anything. Please?
I couldn't do it. Didn't Jenny understand? It was just impossible. Unhappily, I shook my head. Then Jenny spoke to me, quietly and very angrily.
You have no heart,
she said. She spoke into the telephone again.
Mr. Barrett, Oliver wants you to know.
She was crying, so it wasn't easy for her.
Oliver loves you very much,
she said, and put the telephone down quickly. I don't know why I did it. Perhaps I went crazy for a moment. Violently, I took the telephone and threw it across the room. Damn you, Jenny! Why don't you get out of my life? I stood still for a second. My God, I thought. What's happening to me? I turned to look at Jenny, but she had gone. I looked round the flat for her. Her coat was still there, but she had disappeared. I ran out of the house and searched everywhere for her. The law school library, Radcliffe, the music school. Was she in one of the music rooms? I heard somebody playing the piano, loudly and very badly. Was it Jenny? I pushed the door open. A big Radcliffe girl was at the piano. "What's the matter?" she asked. Nothing," I answered, and closed the door again. Where had she gone? I felt terrible. I searched the university, the streets, and the cafes. Nothing. Had she taken a bus to Cranston, perhaps? At midnight, I found a telephone box and called Phil.
"Hello?"
he said sleepily.
"What's the matter? Is Jenny ill?"
My God, I thought. She isn't there. She's fine, Phil. I just called to say hello."
"You should call more often, damn it,"
he said.
"Is Cranston so far away that you can't come down on a Sunday afternoon?"
"We'll come. Some Sunday, Phil. I promise."
"Don't give me that. Some Sunday indeed. This Sunday, Oliver."
"Yes, sir. This Sunday."
"And next time you telephone, I'll pay, damn it. Okay?"
He put down the telephone. I stood there and wondered what to do. At last, I went back to the flat. Jenny was sitting on the top step. I was too tired to cry, too glad to speak. "I forgot my key," said Jenny. I stood there on the bottom step. I was afraid to ask how long she had been there. I only knew that I had hurt her terribly. "Jenny, I'm sorry." "Stop," she said. Then she added, "Love means you never have to say you're sorry." We walked up to our flat. As we undressed, she looked lovingly at me. "I meant what I said, Oliver." And that was all.